Hello and welcome to the FDI Repository webinar. The FDI Repository is an exciting new product from the FieldComm group. It takes our existing DD library infrastructure and modernizes it to offer an exciting new set of use cases for making it easier for both our members, users, to be able to use DD and FDI technologies. My name is Stephen Mitschke. And along with me is Donnie Goff. And today we're going to cover several topics around the FDI repository. First, start off with giving you a little bit of refresher on what are today's offerings. Second, we'll cover the FDI repository in a little bit more detail, talk about the different plan offerings and subsets. Many of you listening to this webinar are maybe an existing subscriber to either the HART or the Foundation Fieldbus Library. So we'll cover the transition plans and what you can expect. I will then conclude my initial presentation with a basic introduction to the repository API. This is the new RESTful interface that allows you to build apps to be able to access the various metadata associated with the various packages and EDDs, as well as download one or many of those from the repository. After that demonstration, discussion, Donnie will give you a variety of demonstrations from both our developer portal to several different applications on how you can use the FDI repository API to build applications, and I'll finalize the webinar with some next steps. Let's talk about today's offerings. For those of you who have subscriptions to these offerings, you may be familiar with them. We have a subscription service to the Foundation DD library that offers those that subscribe access in a single contained zip file all the various device descriptions registered by FieldComm group. This model was offered in either a single site or a corporate a multi-site license. These libraries give you full distribution rights to take and incorporate these DDs downloaded from this DD library and incorporate them in your products and services. On the HART side, a similar but slightly different model. The model there, the initial licensing fee was $5,000. However, the renewals only at $3,000. These were corporate licenses, corporate-wide. The HART DD library would be bundled up and made available on a quarterly basis. We also have an option that if a member or developer simply wanted a single snapshot, that was also available at a single fee as well. These are the offerings that we have today. But why change? Well, number one, we've got a little bit of an amazing infrastructure within FieldComm group. Quite a few different disconnected systems made a lot of redundancy in terms of internally managing these aspects of these different tools and these libraries and maintaining integrity and so on. Obviously, as you just saw, we have different delivery methods, different licensing models. And on that last discussion, never even made reference to FDI, which not only includes products from FieldComm group, but even other protocol organizations as well. And so this leads us to looking at some external opportunities for modernizing this DD library infrastructure. Moving away from simply downloading a single file to really providing an open API, an interface that instead of having an individual who might need to log into a website, navigate a file structure, and then download that zip file, and then take that and give that to various members of their company, well, why not instead have an open API where a computer, an application, can go search that repository, find a variety of information, perhaps even without even downloading the DDs. Things like when was this DD last updated, or which devices might be compatible with these various FDI packages. A variety of these different use cases that make it easy to find and access the most recent, current, and updated device package repositories. And finally, recognizing that in the model of collaboration, especially with FDI technology being much more than just a FieldComm group technology available, today we see products from Profibus and ISA 100, Modbus, and as that continues to grow, we want to be able to offer a single infrastructure that no matter the protocol you're looking for, tools can be built to be able to identify and pull in these latest registered products. So let's talk a little bit more about these applications. The first example that always comes to mind is the update use case. I have an Android phone, and it seems like every day I open it up, and sure enough, I've got 5 different apps to update because somebody's been making and improving those applications or addressing security concerns or whatnot. A good use case here is making that use case available to our members and to our users of the technology. And the way we need to do that is be able to provide some services that make it easy for tools to be able to identify automatically without having to go and have someone log into a system, search through a set of files and download a zip file and then figure it out. How about go to a system, query it, and find out has anything been updated, and if so, which ones are updated, and be able to provide that metadata and information for applications to build on top of that. Now, this could be an end-user tool, and we'll see an example of that a little bit later on, but also think about your internal tools. Your company, you have a quality assurance program, you have people that are dedicated to looking at the latest DDs or device packages and be able to maybe do some internal testing for your own aspects. Well, how do you track that easily? And maybe you build some local apps that take advantage of our API as well. So a wide range of different types of applications can be built on this API, both, I would say, internally facing for your company to make your processes easier, to support your own updating services that perhaps you offer your customers, or perhaps also offering it directly to customer-facing applications as well. A lot of these are all certainly possible with the system that we've designed today. So in terms of migrating these, we've tried to keep it simple. So there's no longer a single protocol-specific library repository. We felt, really unifying this under a single product made a lot of sense. And so today, as we move forward, there'll be a new single FDI repository model that incorporates all DDs, packages, dictionaries, all the files necessary for device integration, offering those in actually a couple different options, irrespective of protocol. What we'll call the access option, which is for the most part kind of how it is today, the ability to log in, connect to a system, and be able to download an archive or a bundle of DDs or hard products or packages. That function exists. But another subscription option, as we'll see, we also support the idea of accessing that with the API as well. And those are offered at 2 different pricing points, which will be shown next. So as I said, the access pricing level will be priced at $2,000 US. This will be an annual subscription fee. And for your experience today on how you access either the HART library or the DD library, very similar on how this will continue, obviously, but instead of having to subscribe to one or the other, one subscription gives you full access to both the HART, the Foundation Fieldbus, and of course the packages that are registered by the FieldComm group. The developer option, which again it's one or the other, so you don't subscribe to both. You either subscribe to the access or the developer. So the developer option will be priced at $5,000 annually. Again, covers everything that the access subscription does, but gives you access to that important API that we'll be talking about here in more detail in the coming moments. Gives you access to the API portal where you'll be generating your API keys, access to the most recent device descriptions. The repository essentially updates near real time. As we register a product and put it in a registry, turns the product registry, it's available now and immediately. So there's a little bit performance enhancement available on the developer versus the access, though both certainly offer access to both of those. The FieldComm registry, which is our website dedicated to providing a detailed list of the various registered products for Foundation Fieldbus and Heart Technologies, is the first web application we've developed that takes advantage of the FDI repository. When you visit the registry, which is a publicly available website, you can go through and you can search and find a variety of different registered products. For intelligent field devices like Heart and Foundation Fieldbus devices, when you click through, you'll be able to access the device descriptions or device packages associated with that. The registry takes advantage of the repository by querying the repository to identify the correct package or the correct DD for a given product. And when an end user actually clicks on that button to download the package, that package is actually served from the FDI repository. So the registry, the public registry catalog that you see today, is our first application fully built using the FDI repository as a means for managing distribution. The FieldComm registry, as I just mentioned, was the product catalog of various different products and services that have qualified underneath our registration program. So that registry, of course, contains metadata associated with that when that product was registered and some of those registered features. Part of that, of course, is we make available the device descriptions or FDI packages that are available. This registry allows end users, or for that matter anybody in the world, to access, to filter and find products and then ultimately download a device description or package. But the package or the DD that is served by this registry originates from the repository. So we built systems and we utilize those systems today for us to be able to deliver a public-facing website for those registered products. Now, the FDI repository, as we note, has a very different audience, focusing on developers, manufacturers, those who are going to be building apps or providing these DDs to their customers, recognizing that the FDI repository is much greater than just the FieldComm group's protocols. We've chosen to brand it with the FDI and with the Ask for FDI logo information to make it open for opportunity for other communication protocols or communication technologies to be able to add their products to the registry and really provide the industry a single place for being able to access the device descriptions. So let's talk transition plan. For those that have subscriptions to either one or two of the existing plans, this table covers roughly how we intend to migrate you at your next renewal. Good news, and I'm going to say right now, nobody's paying any more money. Even better news, many of you may be paying less money when it's all done. So let's talk. If you have an existing FFDD library single site license, which you currently pay $2,000 annual subscription, you will migrate to the repository access, which has no price changes. The benefit, of course, is you'll have a site-wide subscription if you have multiple sites, and of course you'll be accessing all the Heart EDs and the FDI packages. For those existing customers that are on the DD library corporate side, you will migrate to the same repository access, and you'll save $2,000 while gaining the benefits of accesses to the Heart and FDI packages. For those that are on the standard Heart DD library only, paying $3,000 a year, again, we'll migrate you to the FDI repository access, and again, you'll be saving $1,000, so only $2,000 at your next renewal. Now, some have subscriptions to both products, so looking at, depending upon if you had a single or a corporate side renewal to the Heart and the Heart library, generally, if you have both, we're going to migrate you as is with no charge. And not only will you have the access, but you'll have all the features in the repository developer as well. So you will have full access to the API to build applications. And for those customers that subscribe to the corporate level for the Foundation Fieldbus library along with Heart library, again, you'll migrate over to the developer option at $5,000, saving you $2,000. These are all set to transition at your next renewal. If you would like to transition earlier, you can contact FieldComm Group at support.fieldcommgroup.org, and we can work through the details on applying credits or whatnot, depending on your situation, to transition you into the new program. Okay, so now that we've covered some of the logistics, let's jump into some of the technical aspects. So there is a developer portal. It's available at developer.askforfdi.com. For those who may not know, askforfdi.com, yes, again, without the developer in front of it, will take you to a microsite where we promote FDI technology across protocol organizations. But putting the word developer in front of that, developer.askforfdi.com, will take you to our developer portal. In that developer portal, you'll be able to find immediately, publicly available, the full API description that we have available. Donnie will shortly be going over this in much more detail to show you how the different API endpoints and authorizations occur, and so on. But even today, you can visit developer.askforfdi.com, and you can view the API calls and the data that's responded to get yourself educated on this particular service offering. So when you make web services calls look quite similar to the URLs you might type in a browser, and that's because they are in fact URLs. But they got a little bit more than what you might typically use in a browser. So a browser by itself won't necessarily give you access to the API without some additional tools and stuff, which we'll cover later. But the way that we manage authentication for that, who has the permission to use the API, that's through an API key. And the API keys themselves are available in the developer portal. So when you, as a developer, you'll have your developer account, you type in your email address, password, and you'll log into that portal. You'll find that within their portal, there'll be a case where you'll be creating your applications, and that's where your API key. And it's a string of numbers, letters, symbols, and so on. But ultimately, what is involved is that API key is included in all header requests sent to the API endpoint. So when you request data, as long as that API key is there, our API server, our service knows that you're authorized to access it, and will return the respective metadata or files depending upon your API call. So when I emphasize again, these API keys, this is not your personal username or password. So when you connect to the developer portal, as you'll notice, you will, using, in that case, your own username and password, there'll be a place in the developer portal where you'll create your applications that are going to be built on the API. And when you do that, it will generate API keys for you. Each application must have at least one API key, and applications could have multiple API keys as well. And in fact, this is always good security practice, because the API keys essentially is the password. And no doubt, sometimes these things slip through security, in which case you have to change your API keys, for example, to maintain integrity. So it's always a good job to have multiple API keys in your applications that can be used in the event one perhaps got compromised or had to change. And that's no different than certificates or any other sort of technology involved. It's just standard maintenance. So again, you have the API key, which is embedded in the header of the call, which is typically provided by the tools, allows you to access the endpoint. So what are these endpoints? So, again, we're going to let Donnie show it off in better examples, but I just want to give you a little bit of a preview. So the endpoint themselves, api.askforfdi.com/repository/v1/packages in this case. This is an example of an API call. And the API call has a variety of options. These are parameters that can be appended to the URL string. Typically that's done, you put a question mark and then something equals something. You've probably seen this similar when you visited web pages, when you see a lot of things that appear after the standard URL. Well, it's kind of the same thing, but some of these calls could be limiting the search, looking for updates within a certain time frame, or returning back a certain number of values and so on. Again, lots of different options, and in each API endpoint we'll have a variety of different options for searching or ultimately downloading a package or DD metadata information. And as you can see on the right-hand side, in this case, this is bringing in metadata for an FDI package. This particular response is JSON encoded. The API supports either JSON encoded responses or XML responses, so both of them are available to you depending upon your likings and your preferences. So that's enough of slides today. I'm now going to turn it over to Donnie Goff, and the first topic Donnie is going to cover is the developer portal.
Hi, I'm Donnie Goff. I'm a software engineer with the FieldComm group. I've been in the industry for about 20 years now, the process automation industry, and I implemented the repository API. We'll be talking about the repository API developer portal today. The repository API developer portal is available to customers who buy a repository subscription. It contains documentation of the API in human and machine readable format. The format is an open standard called OpenAPI, also known, the file format is known as Swagger. With your subscription to the repository API, you'll be assigned a developer portal user account. Here's how it looks when you try to use the account to log into the developer portal. All right, so you can see here I've got the developer portal. This is the Ask for FDI website, developer.askforfdi.com, and I haven't logged in yet, so you can see up here in the upper right, here's my sign in. I will go ahead and sign in. And when you go ahead and get a subscription for this, you'll get a username and you'll get a password. These are credentials. You can sign in. It'll take you back to that home screen. All right, first thing you'll want to find out is how to get an API key. The repository API is protected by an API key system. One of the things you can do with your developer account is get those keys. So let's take a look here. We're at the home right now. I'll move over to My Apps and Keys. And I've already set up a demo application that you can see here, but it's actually fairly easy to set up your own application. You might have more than one host application, therefore you might need to create multiple apps here and assign keys separately to those apps. You just click the New App button, enter the name and description here, and you'd come down here and enable the repository API for that particular app. Let me go back. We'll stick with the demo host that I've created here. So this application I created, and it's already got API keys assigned to it. You can see down here, here's your API key, and it also assigns an API secret. We're just using the API key. We don't actually use the secret. And if you go here, you can actually copy that key to the clipboard for later use. You can delete the keys. You can create as many keys as you want with this Add Key button. You'll be responsible for actually managing those within your organization. All right, if I scroll down just a little bit more here, you can see we actually only have one API, the repository API, and this key is enabled for this API. All right, next we have online documentation, which also functions as a simple test bed, so you can try it out. So let's go back to the home here and the APIs, and we only have one API, the repository API, so I'll click on that. All right, and here's our very basic functionality. The /get query is the very basic query that we can start with. Let me show you that real quick. All the APIs can return either JSON or XML. The default is JSON if you don't fill in anything, so I'll just leave it blank. And let's execute that. You'll notice the query did not work. We got an unknown status. We got a status back that we did not expect. The reason for that is we have not authorized our credentials yet. So there's a button for that up here, authorize. And we could actually paste in the API key that I've got on the keyboard, or we can actually just select our demo host app here, and it will go over to that section of the website and find the API key from there. So now we're authorized. Now we'll actually be adding the API key to the header. Now when we do our query, our get/query, this is a query to sort of the root of the repository just to tell us the overall status of the repository. You'll see now that we're authorized, we've actually got a valid response back. So let's go through quickly the different parts of this response that we get back from our overall /query, our get/query. We have version. This is the version of the API software that's running on our server. So this is version 1.0.0.495. That's kind of like the about box that tells you the version of the software that you're running here. And we do have a release notes section in the developer portal, which will show you the release notes for the different versions. All right, the next field here, last update, that's a really important field. So that tells you the last time that the repository was touched in some way. Either a package was added, or an EDD was added, or something was deleted, something was changed. And so this is a timestamp, which has a date here and a time here, which tells you exactly when that happened. So if you're trying to stay in sync as a host application, if you're trying to stay in sync with our online repository, you can use this field to actually do that. All right, further down here, there's a list of all the different protocols and protocol families that exist in the repository. Those are less important right now. All right, so the repository contains metadata for a list of EDDs and a list of packages, as well as the binaries for the EDDs and packages themselves. So let's take a look at how we're going to query to see what EDDs are there. All right, so there's a very simple query here, which I'll click on here, the EDDs get query. Now this actually returns the metadata, basically the directory listing for all the EDDs in the repository. Now that's a lot of EDDs. I'm going to give us a page size here that's a little bit smaller than the hundreds and hundreds of EDDs that we have. And let's go ahead and execute that query. There are other fields there that you can use to make the query a little bit more restrictive. Let's go ahead and execute this one. And this should get us the first 6 EDDs out of the repository, or at least the metadata information for them. And it looks like it has. So let's take a quick look at that. Here's our response, the entries that make up our response. Here's the first one. You'll notice the first field here is the URL. All of these entries will have a URL field, and that is actually the URL that you would use for a subsequent query to go ahead and get the actual EDD binary. So if you follow, let's scroll over here. You can actually look at this very long list here. It has a manufacturer ID, device type, device revision for this particular EDD. And the very last part is media here. And that's a word that we use to basically say this is the actual file that you're going to download, the EDD file or the package file. All right, good. The next is update time for this EDD. So this is the last time this EDD was updated in the repository. And then there's data about the EDD itself, what protocols this EDD, foundation or heart, what's the manufacturer ID, device type, device revision. These are all standard ways that EDDs are referred to and stored in foundation, field bus, and heart. And then there's EDD revisions. Each EDD can be represented in the repository with multiple revisions. So it shows the format, which in this case is FFO. That's sort of the oldest field bus foundation format. And the EDD revision for this particular one is 1. Let me scroll down a little and see if we can find one that has more than one revision in the repository. This one only has 1. This one has multiple here. So here we have a foundation EDD with multiple revisions. All of these are FFO format, so the original FF format. You could also see FF5 format packages in here, or EDDs in here. And here's the different revisions. So this has FFO revision 1, FFO revision 2, and FFO revision 3 in it. So if you were to actually go and use this URL here in a query, you would get a zip file that actually has all 3 of these FFO EDD revisions in it. That's the way that works. All right, good. Now, I mentioned this earlier, the repository also contains metadata for the FDI packages. So let's take a look at a query for the FDI packages. Here's an overall query for the FDI packages. Again, this could return a whole lot of FDI packages, so let's give us a smaller page size there too. There's nothing special about page size 6. It's just a fairly small number. All right, so here we go. We have a number of packages showing up here. And here's our response. And you'll notice again, there's a URL field at the beginning. And the URL field points to the repository API. And you'll notice it's a little bit different. It now has a package and a package ID. and a version, but it also ends in that keyword media, which tells us that it's actually going to return you the file available for download, actually to get the package. This also, like our previous query, has an update time, but there's some additional fields here that we can supply for packages. So one of them is the hash. That's like a checksum of the actual binary package. So you could use this if you wanted to make sure that you downloaded correctly and the download checksum is correct. So your package was not corrupted during the download process. All right, and another thing about FDI packages is that they have signatures. They are signed, when they're registered, they're signed both by the manufacturer of the device that created the package and by the FieldComm group when the package is actually approved. So there's typically going to be two signatures, and this is metadata about those signatures that were used to sign this particular package. So you can see the first one, the subject name. This is a field in the standard digital signatures. The common name listed there is FieldComm group, so you can see this was the FieldComm group signature here. And there's a commitment type, and the commitment type, if I scroll over a little, you can see the commitment type, which is also part of the digital signature standard, is proof of approval. So this shows that the FieldComm group has a signature that is approving this package. So the other one must be from the manufacturer, and then we can look here and we can see, okay, yeah, the common name here is ABB, and their signature identifier here was proof of origin. So they're the ones signing it to say, hey, we are the origin of this particular package. So that data may or may not be useful to you, but it is showing you what's in the signatures. All right, so further down, this is the actual file name you would get if you go ahead and get this FDI package. And then here's some information, some metadata information from the package catalog. Every FDI device package has a package catalog that has all sorts of information in it about the manufacturer, the FDI version that they support, et cetera, et cetera. The interfaces, the communication interfaces. This particular one is a HART communication interface, HART FSK. There's versioning information. There's a lot of stuff in the metadata, and we reproduce that here so that you don't have to go and actually get the binary package to get this information. It's available very quickly in these queries, these HTTP queries. All right, good. So one thing to note about FDI packages is they sort of, they can be harder to find if you've got a big pile of them, because what you've got is just a bunch of different file names like this all in one directory. And that can be difficult to work with. So we have queries to help with that. We basically have sort of reproduced the FF and HART style of finding things by manufacturer ID, device type, etc. So let me go ahead and look at that here. We got packages. Let's find a query that will actually let us find something by package protocol. Let's search by protocol and manufacturer ID and device type. How about that? And maybe even device revision. So we have a query for that. So we can go all the way down and actually find, a specific, for a specific protocol, HART or Foundation. We can find a specific manufacturer, device type, and device revision. So let's do a look at that. Let's look for a HART, and let's find manufacturer ID 1A, device type 1A07. Yes, I kind of looked these up ahead of time. But these are the information for at least one package in our repository. And let's see if we found it here. It looks like we did. Looks like we found an entry here. And this is, if I come down here, this is an ABB package version 2. And this was HART and manufacturer ID 1A07, or excuse me, device model 1A07, manufacturer 1A. So this just shows that we can actually sort of reproduce the familiar search process, search format that we had for FF and HART, which is not something that is quite so easy with just a large number of FDI packages. But using that meta information from the package catalog and bringing that out into the repository and making it searchable, we've actually made these as easy to find as EDDs. Good. All right. One other thing that you can notice is that you can actually download the Swagger definition here. and that'll be a YAML file, and that's that standard open API file that can be imported into other tools. There are other tools like Postman is one of the free ones out there that lets you do HTTP queries. There's also plugins for some browsers. I've used a plugin for the Firefox browser, actually, that allows you to set the different headers and do queries and look at the responses yourself. So there's plenty of free tools out there that can import this query definition file and allow you to do things like this little tool here allows you to do. Very good. This wraps up the basic overview of how to use the repository API from the developer portal. I hope you can see that the repository API offers a lot of powerful search techniques that you might find very useful in developing a host application. Thank you. I'm Donnie Goff with the FieldComm group again. Next, I'm going to demonstrate how to get started coding a repository client application. We'll start where we left off last time in the developer portal. One of the areas we hadn't explored yet is the release notes section. Let's go look at that now. You can see the documentation of changes to the API over time here. In addition, there are links to various forms of other documentation. One of these is a link to the repository API on Swagger Hub. That's a site where developers go to create and share their web APIs. So let's go there now. So this is the Swagger Hub site opening in our browser. You can see there's all sorts of information available about the API on Swagger Hub. So we've got queries, an overview of the different queries over here on the left. We've got them categorized by repository overall, EDD, package over here. In the middle, we've actually got the Swagger file itself. This is the actual formal definition of the API, and that's created and stored here. And then over on the right, we've got a little interactive interface that allows you to exercise each of these queries, sort of like we did already in the developer portal. All right, we're going to focus today on the feature that allows us to export stub code for this API to give us a head start on developing our host application. So we have an export menu here, and what we're interested in is the client SDK that will help us create our client. We'll want to be a client of the repository API if we're developing a host app. And you can see there's a lot of different languages and SDKs that they support here. And we're going to take a look at the C#.NET today. There's also Java, JavaScript, all kinds of different options for them to develop to generate code for you. All right, we'll look at the C#.NET and we'll go ahead and open that file that it's generated for us. And so you can see it's generated a whole set of files here with documentation, that's markdown documentation, the actual source, actual C# source, which we'll kind of drill down into here, io.swagger, and then we have an API client and model folder. Let's look at the client, and let's take a look at the API client. I've got it loaded up here in Visual Studio. So this is the API client that was generated by Swagger Hub for us, just based on the definition of our API. And you can see it's got a namespace set up, it's got a public class, it's got all sorts of little tools in here to handle all the sort of background that needs to be handled to interface to a web API. It's actually got a call API function. All this is generated for you to start, so you can just sort of fill in around it. That's the way this thing is supposed to work. So as you can see, you can use these stubs to get a head start on interfacing to the online repository API. Thank you. Next, I'd like to show you how to use a free third-party tool called Postman to exercise the repository API. First, let's take a look at Postman. Postman allows us to import our definition of our API in open API format. So let's do that now. Here's our import. These are all the various formats that Postman supports, and Open API is one of them. All right, so let's go get our Open API definition. That's over in our developer portal, so I'm going to switch over to the developer portal, familiar from previous videos. All right, and let's go find our API definition. We're at the home here. Let's go to APIs, repository API, and here we can download the specification. So let's download the specification. That is a YAML file. We will save that. So this is our actual repository API definition. I'm saving it locally now. And let's go ahead and go back to Postman. Find our file and drag it in. All right, so Postman is ready to import. It has a lot of various and sundry import settings. The defaults seem to work fine for us. Let's import our API definition. All right, the collection was imported. It actually knows the name of it. It's repository. It's got 28 requests. They're categorized into EDDs, packages, and then sort of 3 at the top here that are overall repository information. So since we have a lot of APIs to manage, Postman has this concept of collections. Our repository API is now an API collection inside of Postman. So remember, we need to authorize each of these queries to have them work. It'd be nice to authorize the entire collection at once. Postman does support this. So let's go to the repository collection here, and let's edit it. And you'll notice there is an authorization tab. So within the authorization, we know that we use API keys for our repository API. So let's fill in API key here. That is the field name. And we'll need to get the actual key. All right, fortunately, we have one in our developer portal. So let's go over to the developer portal and copy that to our clipboard so we can paste it in. All right, here's our developer portal. Let us go to My Apps and Keys. Here's our application, and here's our API key. So here's a little button for copy to the clipboard. So we're going to copy this API key to our clipboard. We're going to switch back over to Postman, and we're going to paste that key in here. Update. All right, so now that API key is stored with the repository collection. It should be able to apply to all the things within the collection, all the queries within the collection. So let's check out a packages query. Get packages. All right, and we're not going to need most of these fields. We're not going to need to pass page token. I'm going to uncheck all these fields that we're not going to use right now. I'll go ahead and give it a page size so we don't get an inordinate number here. Since there's a lot of packages in there, let's just say 10. Edit that out. All right, so let's go with page size of 10. Let's verify our authorization. We have not selected authorization for the query. We need to inherit it from the parent. Okay, that will inherit that key from the collection. Go back to our parameters here. And let's send the query. And there's our response. This has all of our JSON coming back from the repository API server. So our authorization did work. And now we can continue to test and debug with the Postman tool. So that demonstrates how to use the free third-party Postman tool to exercise the repository API for test and debugging purposes. Next, I'd like to show you another real-world example of a program that uses the repository API. This particular program is called the Reference Runtime Environment, and it is a part of the FDI Package IDE. That's a developer toolkit that we sell for the FDI development, FDI package development. And it allows you to not only develop packages, but to test and view other people's packages. And to do some of that, it interfaces to the repository API. So let's see how it does that. Here's the Package Repository tab inside the Reference Runtime Environment. And we're taking a look at the packages and EDDs in the repository. So I've gone ahead and I've clicked this button to start with. This is the synchronize button. And this actually will go to the repository online and download all the metadata for all the EDDs and packages. It takes several minutes, so you want to do that once and just be done with it. And everything after that, all our searches after that here are local. So I've already done that, and now you can see it's filled in the data down here of all the various manufacturers and devices and package versions and all those things. You can see this is page 1 of 108. So there's a lot of data here that we've downloaded that we're now able to search through and find different packages and EDDs in. Now this download did not actually load the packages and EDDs themselves, it just loaded the metadata so that we can do searches. But the tool does allow you to download a specific package or EDD once you found it. So let's say we want to look at manufacturer Honeywell here. The way this tool is structured, the searches go on the left, most general, and move to the right. So I filled in Honeywell here. Honeywell, it looks like it supports either of these protocols. Let's just leave that blank for now, and let's just do the search for Honeywell. And we can see, okay, here's all the Honeywell products that are in our repository. There are 5 pages worth down here, so pages 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we've got all 5 pages potentially showing there. And let's say we want to narrow down to just their heart devices. So we can do that and do a search. And okay, now we're only seeing the heart protocol packages and or EDDs. And then let's see, I could search for device model, revision. Let's go by a device model, search that. And there's only one of these. And okay, so let's say we found the smart line radar that we're looking for. Let's go ahead and download the EDD for it. And you can see it's actually gone ahead and downloaded the EDD. It doesn't let you choose this particular tool where it puts it. So it's put it in program data. But you could find it there. All right, now let's reset. Let's go back. And let's say we want to search again. Let's go back to Honeywell, just for friends here. And let's say I want to find a package. I want to find an FDI package. How many FDI packages do these guys have? So it looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different potential FDI packages. And notice this search was very quick. Again, this is all local data now that we've cached it here in this tool. And so let's say I want to download this package here. Let's go ahead and download it. And we've done it. So this shows another real-world example of a tool that uses the repository API. Thank you.
So that wraps up our demo portion of the webinar. As we conclude here on this webinar series, first of all, thank you for joining us. I hope you found this informative. I hope you're as excited as I am in being able to see how this API can be used to improve business processes. Next steps, visit our developer portal, developer.askforfdi.com. You can look at that today, immediately after this webinar. Go take a look at some of the documentation and the various different API calls. However, if you want to use the API call, you will need to get a developer account. And those can be done either at your next renewal, or if you like it quicker, you can contact us at our support portal and we can certainly migrate you sooner. When you get a developer account, certainly you can utilize either the portal we have there or a variety of other freely available tools to be able to exercise calls and learn by example on utilizing the API. There are several what I'll call low-code type application environments out there. For those not be familiar, there's something called Power Apps, which is offered by Microsoft, which allows you to essentially draw an application and bring in external APIs. I can say at FieldComm Group, we've actually utilized that to build a small application. Allows us to query the database and address some management-related functions. There are other innumerable number of different frameworks out there for doing development services. If you're familiar with, for example, Blazor, another one that we've been experimenting with internally here. This is allows you to build web apps with C#, since most of our staff here are C# knowledgeable. And again, with little effort and with using some open source tools based that Microsoft's provided, you can take that open API file, and with a few clicks, you can generate your client application and be able to quickly be able to query and throw up some of the data on a web screen, for example. So a lot of options that are available to make it quickly to access our API, perhaps incorporate that with other information that you might have, and then build some wonderful apps. And finally, I'll leave you with this. Our first instance of the API really focused on making both the files, the individual DDs or FDI packages available, and of course basic metadata. But we recognize that this service has opportunity to grow. We can offer at this API level access to information inside both the FDI package and perhaps even the DD inside the packages. And this could open up a whole new interesting world on making it easier for users to be able to access some of that information available to create a whole variety of unique applications based on DDs and FDI packages. So I'll leave it with that. Thank you very much, and we hope you enjoyed our presentation today.